What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You could text us on the Ticket King text line, 865-658-5824. We're flying solo this morning. Tim's on assignment, taking care of some stuff. Emilio's out working on the grind. He may join us shortly, but we'll probably be solo for the entirety of this show. Hope everybody is having a great a Thursday morning here, a little bit rainy in Tennessee, but the weather's turning cooler. It's supposed to be I think down in the 20s a little later in the week, which is exciting for me. I'm a big cold weather person, so really, really jacked up about that. Before we get to the chat, let's do this. Let's give a quick shout out to the good folks over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since 92, specializing in Packers tickets. They're Wisconsin's largest ticket source with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Click on the link in the video description. That'll send you to theticketking.com where you can register for free as a customer and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Again, that's Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. So got a lot of stuff to talk about as we're getting closer to Packers-Bears on Sunday at 12 noon Central there in Chicago. Going to be a fun game to watch, I think. You're getting more and more injury report updates coming out of Chicago, as we'll mention here in a second. They've got a key player that looks like he's going to be missing. We got a number of different directions we can go in this show today. I got all kinds of stuff queued up. We'll just kind of go rapid fire. We'll definitely keep an eye on the chat as much as we can. Flying solo, you know how that goes. So we'll jump right into the chat right off the bat here. Jake G126, morning, healing up from the surgery Tuesday. That's great to hear, Jake. Said now I get to tune into this terrible show and talk some ball. Don't forget to hit that like button. Appreciate you, pal. And he did throw in the chat that he's no jalapeno poppers for breakfast today. Went with the scrambled eggs. What a weird choice, Jake. What a weird choice. We're on our second cup of coffee here. We get the diesel flowing. And I don't know, man, there's just something about waking up on a fall morning, a little chilly outside, grabbing a cup of coffee and talking a little ball, diving into some of the analytics and some of the matchups that you may see on Sunday, and really keeping up with the NFL as a whole around the entire league. I don't know how you guys feel. Some people get really, really amped up for the playoffs and obviously the Super Bowl push and all that. And I think it's great. I think it's high stakes, it's high energy, all those things that you hear. But for me, what I really enjoy is like the middle of the season when you've got the storylines that have kind of already unfolded, and you see some teams overperforming, some teams underperforming. You got teams that get banged up with injuries, much like we seen way back in the day in 2010 when the Packers won the Super Bowl. It's like, how do you patch that together? How do you adjust your scheme to fit the other people who are filling in? You're looking to accentuate the positives of your team, and you're trying to hide all the negatives. I love that aspect of football personally. So when we get to the middle of the year, this is my bread and butter. I love it. Starts to turn colder, get a little snow flying at Lambeau Field. The weather becomes more of a factor, and typically the tougher team will prevail. So that's what I really love about the NFL. Holmes in the chat says Dallas, talking about the Dallas Cowboys, is a burn barrel. Yeah, it's pretty ugly down in D right now, man. It's interesting too, because like what Jake says here, yeah, Dallas is going to crash and burn the rest of the season. It sure feels that way. I don't see without Dak them turning around with Cooper Rush. And then Jake went on to say Jerry did so little to improve that squad this year. I completely agree, and that was a big talking point. But also, put yourself in Jerry's shoes for a second, and the organization. You had 3 players that were up for contract, and they're really, to be quite honest, they're the 3 best players at their respective positions. So Dak Prescott, you got to make a decision. Are you signing him to a long-term deal or not? Now, hindsight, people are saying, oh, that's a horrible deal. I don't agree with that. Dak was a top 3 quarterback last year. He's either the guy or he isn't. And once you make that decision that he is, you got to pay what the market calls for it. It's just the same thing with Jordan Love. They had to make a call. He was playing a little bit of hardball, holding out, right? He wanted his deal. And you got to ask yourself, is he worthy of top 5 quarterback money? And really what that question is, in my opinion, is he worthy of top 10 quarterback money? And I think we would all agree that answer was yes coming into this season. Now, if Jordan doesn't pan out long-term, it won't be the first time that's happened in the NFL. So that's why the negotiations are so tough up front, and you're trying to keep yourself in a position where, hey, yeah, you got to kind of bite the bullet You signed a player that you didn't want. In no way am I saying this is what it is with Jordan. I think Jordan's the guy. That's my personal stance right now. But when that decision's on the table, you got to make a decision, yes or no. If it's no, then you try to get as much capital for him as possible because other teams may value him or overvalue him. And we're talking Dak here specifically. Or if it's yes, you got to pay what the market is. It's that simple, right? So, with Dak, they made the decision, okay, Dak's the guy. Let's sign him. Let's move forward with him. Got it. The next one would have been CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. You guys know it's not even close. I would have focused on Micah Parsons before CeeDee Lamb. Now, the issue there is CeeDee Lamb was holding out. Micah wasn't, to the best of my knowledge. So they made the decision, all right, let's get the CeeDee Lamb deal done. And the old Bill Walsh school of thinking is really simple. The Bill Walsh school of thinking is, okay, you don't go all out on receiver until you've got every other piece put in place. Going into the offseason, did Dallas think they had every piece? I think many people did. They were one of the best regular season teams the entire year last year. So now us looking at how they've performed this year, I think there's a little bit of that disease of me that's set in, right? You had 3 players that wanted paid. The one who didn't get paid is kind of taking side shots at the head coach now. So the fact that you didn't pay Micah Parsons, who I don't think there's anybody who thinks Micah Parsons isn't a top 5 edge defender in the league. And you guys correct me if you disagree in the chat, but I don't see Micah Parsons as not being worthy of top edge defender money. That's a position of tier 1 importance, right? I would have said, CD, listen, bub, we want you in here, but it's got to make a lot of sense for us to re-sign you. And I would have made sure Micah Parsons got done. Now, you got Dak done. If you got Micah done, then you focus on CD. I would have done it in that order. And that's where Jerry Jones really screwed up, in my opinion. So, it's interesting. It really is. But going into the offseason, I didn't look at Dallas and go, man, they need to improve this. They need to improve that. They need to improve this. I looked at it from, all right, the structure. What is your blueprint to putting together your team? What Bill Belichick calls modeling the roster. What is your model? It doesn't feel like they got a 3-tech, right? They got one of the best edge defenders in the league. So those are your 2 top-tier positions on defense, in my opinion. You got your quarterback. You think and feel pretty comfortable that Dak Prescott is your quarterback. So you got that locked up. Who is their tackle, their left tackle protecting the blind side? I would have keyed in on that. And I would have made sure that I would have spent the offseason trying to get that 3-tech. And, Michael Lombardi says it best. Everybody thinks they got a 3-tech, and there's very few teams in the league that has a true 3-tech, right? Like, in my opinion right now, the Packers don't have a 3-tech. And Jeff Hafley's doing a hell of a job of patching that together. Now, many people say, I think Kenny is. I don't think Kenny's a bad player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Kenny Clark's a bad player. I'm just simply saying he is not a top 5 3-tech in the game. He's not. I'm sorry. And he's getting paid like a top 3 one. So that's kind of how I see it. And it doesn't mean I'm right and anybody else is wrong. It's just when I'm modeling a roster, that's kind of how I look at it. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. Let's see here. Christian, great point. They drafted Gotton in round 1. So they went for – Gotton was a tackle, right? I think he was one of those versatile guys, but I had him listed as a tackle. Let's see where I had Gotton at, because I think he was on the list for the Packers. Yeah, I had him lit up in the yellow for the Packers. So he was one of just like about 6 players in the draft that I felt like the Packers are probably going to key in on him. He just kind of fit some of the mold that they looked for. But as far as Gotton at offensive tackle, I had him as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it sounds like Jerry, he was the best player available on their board according to their draft grades. They go out and grab him and say, all right, let's try to shore up the tackle position. That sounds like the route they went. Now, I can't remember who was on the board as far as a 3-tech when they drafted, but in my opinion, the best 3-techs in this past draft were Byron Murphy, Jerzon Newton, and Tavondre Sweat. Many people looked at him as a nose, but as you can see, it seems like early in the year at least, he was getting some pressure on the quarterback. So you could kind of bend the rules there a little bit and go, hey, let's get him as an interior defensive lineman. And then the other one was Jenkins, right? Yeah, was Cullen Jenkins' nephew, Chris Jenkins. So, yeah, it's interesting. Again, I don't want this turned into a Dallas Cowboy podcast. They bring up in the chat, so we would hit on it real quick. But we'll just kind of stamp this as, modeling the roster talk, right? And that's really conversation for the offseason, but it's cool to look at it in real time and see where teams are struggling in that sense, if that makes sense. So, all right, let's see here. Holmes in the chat. Parsons is good, but I don't think the players have belief in the locker room. I think Mike is gone next year. It feels like a rebuild. Clay White is a 3-tech. No. Yeah, so first thing, Mike, I think he's gone too, man. I don't see a situation where he stays. Sometimes the players love the coach, and that'll buy him another year or two. You get like a slight extension. But when Mike has said that about Mike, it's like, oh, man, that's I think the writing's on the wall. Now, as far as Wyatt being a 3-tech, Wyatt is built to be a 3-tech. The problem is, when has Wyatt dominated a game both in the run and the pass, right? And that's what we mean by a true 3-tech. Wyatt is I think he's I don't want to oversell Devontae Wyatt, but I feel comfortable saying he's a great pass rusher. You kind of got like good, very good, great, and then elite, He's probably somewhere between very good and great as a pass rusher. As a run defender, he's average, I think. That's just me personally. Now, PFF would agree with that. That's PFF. It doesn't make it right. But the big knock on Devontae Wyatt and all of our defensive tackles going into this offseason that we talked about was run defense. And you go, okay, well, it's the scheme. It can be a little bit of the scheme. It can. But when you're toward the top of the league in missed tackle, blown tackle percentage rate, not a good look, right? And then on top of that, aside from the tackle grade on PFF, your run defense grade is extremely low. And then you turn on the tape and you don't see them doing what a Christian Wilkins does or what a Quentin Williams does. That's what I'm talking about, a true 3-tech. Chris Jones can play all over the line, but throw him in a 3-tech, they're going to hit him with a double team, and he's still going to fight through that double team and make plays in the run. That's Chris Jones. It's one of the reasons it hardly ever gets talked about with Kansas City. It's all about Mahomes and Kelsey. But that defense and what Chris Jones has been able to do from the 3-tech and that versatility across the line is a reason that defense is so damn good under Spags. So, I'm trying to think of some of the other good 3-techs across the league. Matter of fact, this is off cuff, but since you guys want to kind of talk a little roster building, let's go in and I'm going to jump on the players real quick. Let's go defensive tackle or interior defender. And we're just going to use PFF as a quick little benchmark. Again, it's not everything, but let's just take a quick look at some of the top 3-techs according to PFF. I'll tell you if I agree or disagree if I've got the information. This is perfect. Cam Hayward, true 3-tech. Imagine if Cam Hayward was in the middle of this Packers defense. You understand what I'm saying? Dexter Lawrence, another one from the Giants, just an absolute dog, 89.8. First of all, Cam Hayward, 90.1. Dexter Lawrence, 89.8. Chris Jones, 89.7. Calais Campbell, he's back up to an 84. That dude's like 110 years old. That's wild. There's McNeil for the Lions. You want to know why the Lions defense has held up pretty well this year? 81 in the middle. DeForest Buckner for the Colts. Travis Jones. See, now you're getting out of that. Like, I don't know if they're a true, 75 and above, you're probably about your cutoff because Jalen Carter, he's a stud. I mean, we've seen enough tape of him to know that he can play at an extremely high level, just maybe need to be a little more consistent. But those top 3 or 5 guys, and again, it's not like they're growing on trees, right? They're not falling from the sky. There's usually about 5 in the league that are dominant. And that's what I mean by you need a true 3-tech. And, like this past draft, you're a little bit out of range to get one, right? Now, the Packers went a different route the year before getting LVN. That's a position that's just as important as 3-tech. I would prioritize 3-tech over edge, but I understand why they went that route. And they knew the writing was on the wall for Preston Smith to eventually leave, right? So that's kind of the route they took there. But hopefully that answers your question there. Wyatt is built like a 3-tech. They play him at a 3-tech. He's just not great against stopping the run. And it doesn't mean that Wyatt's a bad football player. It doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. The same thing with Kenny Clark. Like, we're seeing a lot of touch spies with these guys. Notice we haven't called 195 touch spy. You notice that? Like, I'm not saying the Packers haven't ran that, but when we've done chalk talk all season long, you haven't heard us say that, right? And the reason being is that's one of the guys that they're turning loose. And you ask yourself, okay, why is that? Why are they not having him eat the double team? Well, the offense is dictating where the double team is to a certain extent, but also the Packers are choosing to line one person up in a one tech. They feel like Kenny is best suited to take on that double team, so they'll put him in the one tech. You guys remember hearing everybody say Kenny's years were wasted because he was playing nose? He's playing nose tackle. They're wasting him. And I kept saying, nah, he played 3 and 5 tech. Like, you can see it all over the tape. Some people just regurgitate what they hear certain people talk about, and they don't go fact check it themselves. He played a ton of 3 tech last year, right? This year, they've moved him primarily to 1 tech. Isn't it ironic? We go to a 4-3, and now he's actually playing nose the majority of the time. And they'll move him around from time to time, too, depending on the matchups they're trying to exploit. But, yeah, that's the way I see it, though, as far as Wyatt. He's built like a 3 tech, supposed to be a 3 tech, but unless you're one of those guys in this top 5 list here, Cam Hayward, Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, Calais Campbell, and I'd really probably cut it off right there as far as like elite. And I probably wouldn't even put Calais Campbell in there because he is a little older, a little longer in the tooth, and it's probably just between those top 3 guys, Hayward, Lawrence, and Jones. But you wouldn't consider Wyatt on that level, right? And it has nothing to do with the touch spy in his sense. Now, when you talk about Kenny, yeah, but again, last year, what was the problem with Kenny Clark? Missed tackles, right? He was constantly missing tackles. He would get in the backfield from time to time, and he'd miss tackles. Guys, that's a vital part of run defense, right? Let's see what Emilio said here in the chat. It says, Cowboys lost a lot of depth when Quinn left and brought players to wash with him. All right, wash with that sounds bad, Emilio. I don't know about that, man. Specify there if you want, unless you're just saying it was kind of a push. Holmes in the chat, why can't Wyatt play the run better? He's a monster. The thing that you notice, he's real effective at getting into the backfield, and that's half the battle, right? But it's like he's so focused on that, and he plays a little bit out of control. Like his rookie year, I was team Devontae Wyatt on that draft pick. He was like in the top 3 of overall talent on my draft board when they took him. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And many of the talking heads on Twitter were like, he's too old. The Packers will never draft him. And obviously that proved to be to not be true, right? But he would play reckless his rookie year. And what I mean by that is he'd be working to get around it was just tunnel vision. I'm going to beat the guy in front of me. And he would push himself into other guys' rush lanes and hit them and knock them off. And now you've got 3 guys blocking 2, and the pass rush is completely ruined. You would see that over and over and over. And then once they've got that cleaned up where he plays a little more in the phone booth within his pass rush assignment, now you're seeing, and you've seen it last year too, when he's in the backfield, he's just not, as Mike Wall says, how you arrive at confrontation determines how you handle confrontation. And what that means is if you arrive at confrontation with one leg in front of the other and you're, off balance after doing a rip move and now you're trying to reach across your body to grab a tackle, you're not going to make that tackle. At the linebacker position, it's the same thing. And Mike Wall specifically talking about from an offensive line standpoint, how you arrive at that contact determines how you handle that contact, right? It's not just you've got the athletic ability to get to the next level and block on a duo call. It's when you get there, do you have a strong base? Are you good center? Are you low enough? Are you the low man? Is there good pad level? Where's your hand placement? If you're playing out of control, it doesn't matter how athletic you are. You're not gonna be able to finish the play with someone who's considered an absolute technician. Josh Myers, first person that comes to mind on the offensive line, right? He's a physical freak. He's RAS through the roof. He's got the athletic ability to get to the next level, but when he gets there, many times he's kind of out of control. So that's just kind of how I see it. Anthony in the chat, Aaron Donald was the prototypical 3-tech man. Amen. Aaron Donald was that dude. He could line up anywhere, much like Chris Jones. But if you put him in a 3-tech, what you force now, think about this, guys. Put yourself in the offense's shoes and handling Aaron Donald. Your protection, he's such a good football player. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind, that you're always going to set the protection to Aaron Donald, right? So when you put someone in a 1-tech, most of the time what a 1-tech is, you're between the center and the guard. That's going to, by default, give you a double team block. Well, if you take your best defensive lineman and you put him in a 3-tech, right? Now what you're saying is you've got to make a decision as an offense. Are you going to double team the 3-tech, or you're going to double team the 1? And if the answer is yes to both, then you got to keep extra men on protection. And if that's the case, that means you have less guys going out in the route. So when you've got a true 3-tech like Aaron Donald, that's what we talk about, a true 3-tech. It's why it's more important than a 1-tech. Is now you're forcing them to shade or fade, however you want to fan the protection to the 3-tech side, and now you're creating 2 one-on-one matchups in a normal 5-man protection. That makes sense. So, yeah, nail on the head there, Anthony. Aaron Donald, absolute dog, man. Emilio said Washington, when Quinn left to take the head coach job, he brought a bunch of Cowboys depth players with him. Got it. Yeah, that's very true. Dan Quinn, players coach, they absolutely loved him. And that's the beautiful thing about the NFL. It also sucks about the NFL when it happens to your team. But when these coaches leave, it's like this constant. That's something that's not talked about enough. When a head coach loses coordinators, you get a real good look at that head coach and just how damn good they are. Because if you're able to adjust consistently after losing people and still win ball games, man, that says a lot. Matt LaFleur's one that I think's done pretty darn good at it. But he loses Dan Quinn, his DC, and now some of those players, like Emilio said, they wanted to go play with Dan in Washington. Now you see Washington emerged as pretty much the front runner in that NFC East. You guys remember the conversation when it was, is Jerry Jones going to let Mike McCarthy go and basically promote Dan Quinn to head coach? You guys remember that? Well, he chose to stick with McCarthy. Me personally, I would have done the same thing. I'm not saying it's the right decision. Right now, it's not looking like the right decision. But him going to Washington, you got a little bit of newness there too. McCarthy had great success last year. Where they win 13 games or something crazy. So it's not like McCarthy has just been horrible in Dallas. It's not been the case. It's just there's really unrealistic expectations in Dallas that if you don't win a Super Bowl, boy, Jerry Jones is breathing down your neck. And I think that in itself is the real problem. So let's see. Holmes says Donald played more 1-tech, I think. He was all over the place. It depended on the matchup that week. And when I say matchup, not necessarily like, okay, let's get him on a weak offensive lineman. It was more of a sense of protection. That team that week, do they like to just run with a 5-man protection? Do they typically like to run with 6? Do they like to run with 5 with a leak, meaning it's just a chip and get out in the route? Do they like to run with 7 with 2 leaks? And that would determine where they would put him, is the way I always remembered it. That was what was so awesome about in the short time that they got to play against each other. Elton Jenkins, when he went head-to-head with Aaron Donald, I remember one game specifically that I think it was before we were doing this podcast that they decided, let's let Elton just one-on-one with Aaron Donald, see if he can handle it. And he absolutely ate Aaron Donald's lunch. That's when Elton Jenkins was like, whoa, we got a dog here. Now, since the injury, he's taken a step back, in my opinion. But, yeah, he handled – I remember creating or seeing the meme on Twitter of Elton Jenkins sitting there. They photoshopped his head on a dad's body, and he's holding 2 kids. And the 2 kids, they put Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald on the kids' bodies. It was hilarious. But, yeah, so I think Donald was all over the place, much like Chris Jones. But in a 5-man protection, you want to put Aaron Donald, in my opinion, in a 3-tech, and that way they have to fan to that side. And now you've got a guard trying to block your nose, who typically you're in a nickel formation. You would rather – it's like what they're doing with Kenny right now. Kenny is hands down your best defensive lineman. That's what they're saying when they put him in that 1-tech, because they're wanting him to fight through that double team, right, and draw that double team to him. Again, it's just we're kind of talking in circles, but every week it's different, and it comes down to how good is their offensive line, what does the numbers show is their normal protection, and that will determine how you go approaching, like Chicago this week. Listen, their O-line's cheeks and their quarterback's holding the ball too long. I don't think they're going to put a whole lot of thought in how can we exploit this offensive line. It's probably going to be pretty vanilla, to be honest with you. And there's going to be some touch spine, and there's going to be knuckleheads on Twitter going, this guy, look, he can't get in the back. And it's like, you are not focused on the pass rush, bub. Watch how they're rushing the quarterback. They're going to look to catch Caleb after the first read. They're not looking to just pin their ears back and go get Caleb. It's not going to happen. I'm just telling you. It may happen if you jump up to a little bit of a lead because then you can pin your ears back. But for the most part, what I think Jeff Hafley is going to do is kind of that, hey, start your pass rush, get your eyes in the back. As soon as his first read isn't open, if he drops them eyes like the tape's been showing that he has, then that's where you make your move. Because the offensive lineman is trying to set to your pass rush move. They're not expecting you to lag. If you're lagging back, it throws them, and now all of a sudden Caleb tries to scramble up and out. You just shed that block and sack him. That's what a lot of teams are doing with Caleb right now. So, Holmes, I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you there. He says, great explanation, Clay. It's so hard to illustrate this stuff. And me and Emilio were talking last night. I'm going to start to use the Telestrator a little bit more. I'm going to try to get some basic screen grabs where we can kind of draw what we're talking about. It'd be real simple to do. We just get a little bit I don't know. I get so caught up mid-season with other things we're doing, and there's a lot on the plate right now. But as we do more and more morning shows, which next week we'll probably do 3 or 4 morning shows, hopefully. So we'll have more time to set that up. Jake in the chat says, yeah, they don't make them like Aaron Donald every day. You got that right, man. They're, like I said, they're not just growing on trees, for sure. Andy in the chat, good morning from Freeport, Illinois. Do you think we're in for a surprise loss this week for the Pack? Appreciate you swinging through, Andy. It's possible, right? I wouldn't put my money on it. I think the betting line it opened at 6.5. Many people were surprised it wasn't more. It actually came down to 5.5 now. But you got to be real careful when you're gambling with the Bears involved, because their fan base bets on their team. I mean, I remember Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky was the betting favorite to win MVP one year, guys, and it didn't last all season. But that's because the Chicago fans. You see it. Go to Twitter and type in Mitch Trubisky, and you're going to see a lot of negative. But if the further you go back, they thought he was the second damn coming of Joe Montana. Let me tell you, right? Same thing with Justin Fields until it wasn't. Until the last hour, oh nope, he's gone, he's done, right? And then the same thing with obviously here with Caleb Williams. We got Caleb Williams now. Adam Rank blocked me on Twitter. Absolutely hilarious. I love how that dude talks trash to Packer fans. You talk it back, and he runs like the coward that he is. But, this team is going to be really good this year, and they're all hopped up in a national. You guys remember, there's never been a team that's better prepared or better built for a rookie quarterback. That was the theme all offseason. As soon as they drafted Caleb Williams, it was, oh, my God. We've never seen a team assembled this good for a rookie quarterback. And they come out and just fall absolutely on their face. And here's newsflash. Caleb Williams isn't at the top of that list as problems for that team. That's what's crazy. So now it's shifted to, well, what do you expect? Look at the team they put around him. It's like, whoa. What happened to that energy in the offseason when you said this was the dream team built around him? It's funny how that works. Randy Cleavers with the super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, we better boat race the Bears. Randy, I got some advice, Bubba. It may happen. Right? I hope it does. I hope we beat them by 40. But that mindset, man, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. It's unrealistic, in my opinion. And everybody do what you want. Fan how you want to fan. It's unrealistic to convince yourself that you're going to boat race anybody in the NFL. It just is. I mean, the spread is now moved to 5.5, right? Every week this season, not every week, multiple weeks this season, and not you, Randy. I'm just saying people in general. It was, oh, yeah, we're going to kill. We can crush them. We can beat them. And I'm going, bro, the spread's like 2.5. Are we saying that Vegas doesn't know what the hell they're talking about? And we do. You know what I'm saying? So I try not to look at the game that way. Like, hey, man, we better beat the crap out of them. That's, to me, it's miserable to fan like that. And maybe some people find joy in it. That's cool. It's just not me. I love listening to Packernet After Dark. And after the game, people call in, and I like listening to that because it gives you kind of a feel for the Packernet listeners and how they're approaching, after the game. 2 years ago, it was exactly kind of like what Randy said here, man. If we don't boat race somebody, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. Type approach, right? Now though, holy cow! Like it's you still get some of that, but for the most part, it's more along the lines of here's why it didn't happen that way, right? It just seems like listeners have really kind of rose to that. Hey, all right, we're starting to understand you shouldn't boat race anybody in the National Football League. It's just the way the league's built, right? Now, there's a couple people that no matter what happens, they're going to call in and be negative. They're always going to be negative, and they just like to hear themselves cuss on the show. And I love that Ryan checks them when it happens, but it's some people, they choose to be miserable, you know. Now, Randy, your comment here, we better boat race the Bears. That better be how the coaching staff's looking at to a certain extent. The position coaches should be looking at like, we need to go out and dominate, right? There's no reason why we can't beat this team by 20 points. That doesn't mean you overlook them. It means you don't take your foot off the pedal. You don't take your foot off the gas. You just keep trucking along. If you're up by 40, keep your foot on their throat type thing, right? I kind of feel like that's what Randy's saying. Not I'm going to be miserable if we don't boat race them. So, but again, I don't expect to boat race anybody in the NFL. I just want to make that clear. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat, Randy. You are the man, bub. Let's see what else we got in the chat real quick. I didn't expect to just lean on the chat all show, but you know what? If we can keep up, this is cool. I like it. Let's see here. Jake in the chat. I will say the first Packers-Bears game I went to at Lambeau is when Aaron Rodgers threw 6 touchdowns in the first half. That is absolutely awesome. That's good stuff. First Packers-Bears game I went to was back in like 2000. It was either 2003 or 2004. And it was the alumni game. And yeah, that's I talk about it all the time. Drove right down the field, marched it right down the field. It was, Brett Favre heading into Ahman Green. We go right down, get inside the 5. Somebody strips the ball out of Ahman's hands and takes it all the way back. It was just like, oh man. But still an awesome experience. But that was back when the Bears were actually competing, for sure. Let's see, your number one Packer fan. The Pack keeps playing target practice with their feet. It will be a long day if the Packers. Yeah, amen. Amen, buddy. Got a lot of stuff to clean up here. Andy Watkins in the chat says, I love this channel. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you, Andy. We appreciate you, pal. Thanks for swinging through, man. Yeah, Holmes, that was a big conversation last night. Caleb told the punter his services would not be needed this season. LOL. It's absolutely hilarious, man. Yeah, IROC in the chat. Make sure to like the stream. Go Pack Go. Thank you, IROC. Yeah, if you guys would just take a quick second, hit that like button. One of the reasons why our view count isn't up as much is because I don't say that enough. Some people cut little ads in between saying, hey, hit like, subscribe, this and that. I don't want to hound people with it, So I try to stay away from that stuff, but I got to accept the fact that it's part of the gig. But let's see here. Randy Cleavers, think we will get Cooper instead of Walker this week. We're going to get them both. I have no reason to believe until they show me on Sunday that Quay isn't linebacker 1. And when I say the mock, it means he would be the only linebacker on the field in a dime set where there's only one linebacker. Have no reason to believe that that's not the case. Do I want Cooper to be linebacker 1? Absolutely, I do. But the reality is you're going to be a nickel a lot. Matter of fact, I've got the personnel chart here. Let me pop it up on the screen for y'all, and we'll take a quick look and see what defense we'll be in, because essentially you're going to be matching the defense with their personnel, right? That's the name of the game in the NFL. This is the Bears personnel here for this year. And if you look at the rate, that's the rate in which they play those specific personnel groupings. And what personnel means is you see right here, this number, if I can get there we go. This number right here is 11 personnel. That stands for 1 running back, 1 tight end, which equals 3 wide receiver sets. And the reason that's important, 3 wide receiver sets, the Packers are going to bring their nickel 4-2-5 on the field, right? And whether it's a big nickel or just a traditional nickel, what it means is 5 DBs and only 2 linebackers. And that's where I'm taking it back to Randy's question here. You think Cooper will get Cooper instead of Walker this week. You're going to get them both in that nickel. Now, what's interesting is it's not just Walker and Cooper all the time. There's actually been a healthy rotation of Isaiah McDuffie and Cooper, Eric Wilson, and like that. I'm almost to the point now, honestly, that I would much rather see Eric Wilson and Edgerrin Cooper as our nickel backers. And what I mean by that, you're still going to do your rotation, right? Just flip the rotation numbers. Give Cooper the bulk of the linebacker snaps. Give Eric Wilson the second highest number, then Quay, then McDuffie. That's the way I would do it. Now, I don't know I don't know more than this coaching staff. I don't know this much of what the coaching staff knows. So there's a reason they keep putting Quay out there, right? So I've got to reserve my opinion to, hey, listen, they've forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But when people complain and say, hey, it needs to be Cooper out there instead of Quay, it needs to be Wilson out there instead of Quay, I can't disagree with you either, because the tape suggests it should be. So anyway, they're in 11 personnel 68.4% of the time. They're in 12 personnel 22.4% of the time. They're in 13 personnel 3.3% of the time. That's probably goal line situations for the most part. So the moral of the story is 68.4% of the snaps, if we go off the model that they've done all year long, and it's a pretty damn healthy sample size, right? We're however many games in, 9, 10 games in for some teams. Expect to be in nickel 68% of the time is what you're looking at. So probably somewhere between 65 to 70% of the time you're going to be in your nickel 4-2-5. And then just 22% of the time, so let's say between 20 and 25% of the snaps on Sunday, you're going to be in your base 4-3. We've been playing a lot of 4-3 over, meaning the 3 tech is to the strong side, the 1 tech is on the weak side of the formation, opposite the tight end. So what you'll probably see here is a whole bunch of nickel. I was looking if we had any 0-1 sets. You really don't see a whole lot of 0-1 sets, to be honest with you. I don't see any, matter of fact. I see 10. I see 0-2. So occasionally they'll not even okay, so that's probably their empty set. They like to put tight ends out there, sounds like. So yeah, it's going to be majority nickel and then 4-3. That's what you're going to end up having. So to answer your question, Randy, I expect Quay to be out there the majority of the snaps until we see otherwise. Now, maybe the bye week was a transition period and they go, all right, now it's time to march him out there, right? Maybe that's the case. That I'd be totally on board with it if that was the case. So let's see here. Like Holmes said, not according to Halfley, Randy. Right? Exactly. I wouldn't expect it. Karma hurts Caleb. It sure don't help. If you believe in karma, what goes around comes around. Or if you're a believer like me, whatsoever a man sows, that too he shall also reap. When you draw attention to yourself, another saying from the book, my favorite book on the face of the earth, it says pride cometh before the fall. Caleb comes across like that. And then when things go wrong, he doesn't say, okay, how do I pick my teammates up? He immediately goes into woe is me mode. It's all over college. Again, people can be disappointed in Caleb in Chicago. What I'm not going to allow people to be is to act surprised, because this was all over the college tape. Just the body language, the pouting, the climbing in his mom's arms, the FUND on his fingernails, disrespecting the opponent. And it's like, oh, come on, Clayton, we're all grown here. It ain't a big deal. It is a big deal because you're giving extra bulletin board material to the other team when you do that. Let me get a sip here. So think of it this way too. Xavier McKinney, what he said about DJ Moore. Some will go, well, that's bulletin board material. He's playing chess, not checkers. Think about what he actually said. He said that about DJ Moore and came to Caleb Williams' defense. You remember the clip we played? And I didn't really catch it till this morning. It's like, I think I know what he's doing there. He basically said, Caleb's going to be fine. Caleb's a good quarterback, blah, blah, blah. And then in another part of his interview or whatever, he says, DJ Moore walked off the field on his guy. That's trash, essentially, right? So think about it. What's been the big storyline this week? That some players went to the coaching staff and said they wanted Caleb benched, right? And to the best of my knowledge, they're not benching Caleb. Now, he might be on a short leash. Who do you think was involved with those players? You guys remember earlier in the year when DJ Moore got pissed and was throwing his arms up, and then he said, I can't act like that. I can't really. He didn't say, no, that wasn't nothing directed toward Caleb. He simply said, I can't show that emotion like that, right? And then a couple weeks ago, he walks off the field in mid-play. And now all of a sudden, I guarantee you there's more of the story. DJ Moore was one of those players that walked in there and said, hey, we want him benched. No doubt in my mind. I think DJ Moore's a good receiver. I really do. But there's some problems there. And, again, you couple that with Caleb Williams and the pouting and the woe is me and drawing attention to himself with all the antics he does. Like, if a man wants to carry a purse, guys, hey, more power to you, man. Who the hell am I to tell you how to live your life, right? That's how I've always looked at it. Can we be completely transparent here for a second? I have gay friends. I have gay family. That stuff doesn't bother me, man. It's not my place to tell someone else how to live, right? So when we talk about these things of carrying the pink purse, painting his nails pink, and doing the little, feminine looking dance in the stands and this and that, that's not to say, oh, he's one of those people. No, that's not how I operate. And anyone who hates on people like that, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you, man. The point is, how is the locker room going to respond to a leader that is trying to draw attention to himself? That's the whole point of that conversation for me. That's what it is. And let me give you an example. Jim Harbaugh was mocked up this week, right? He was mocked up. I don't know who they played, but watch how he is leading that team and responding to Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, right? He kept calling him beast, right? Lowering his head and fighting for extra yards. And you don't see Justin Herbert whining. Or when was the last time you heard Justin Herbert come out and talk trash about an opponent and draw attention to himself? Or do something all glamorous, put lipstick on and try to draw attention to himself, right? Telling you, man, this is an alpha league. And if you think for a second that that's not going to affect the way other players play for you, or here's another big thing, undermine you behind the scenes talking about you, that's going on too, right? I'm in business. Trust me, that's a real thing. If you don't have unity and the competition is neck and neck, you're going to get your ass kicked in whatever profession it is you're doing. Period. Case closed. So that was the whole purpose with the Caleb Williams stuff. And again, generational talent, great arm. I think he's got good accuracy, especially on the run. He could throw some dots on the run. Good arm strength, great mobility, able to create those secondary plays. None of that means anything if those other 10 guys on the field aren't going to play for you. And it sounds like they're already kind of giving up on him in the locker room, allegedly. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. Didn't plan on going all the way into that direction, but here we are. For those of you listening on the pod, that's going to do it for hour one. We'll see you on the other side for hour two. Appreciate y'all. All right. So let's stick with the chat here, man. This is fun. Again, I had a bunch of stuff queued up. We can hit it tonight. No big deal. Just wanted to kind of keep this going. I think it's awesome. Holmes in the chat. Hafley loves Quay. They must value his ability to get calls in. That could be a factor too. X could do it though, I'm sure. And how will that affect X, right? That's a real thing too. If Xavier McKinney all of a sudden starts wearing the green dot and he's responsible for setting the defense up, calling the play, communicating it, all those things. The other thing people don't talk about, you're getting the play call, it cuts off at 15 seconds, but sometimes the play call comes in early and there's a little tip from the DC. You know what I mean? It could be like a two-way call. It could be, hey, here's what we're doing. Hey, all right, Quay, we're going you don't say nickel 4-2-5 because the personnel is already on the field. But let's say you look up and you go, all right, we're going to cover 3 strong buzz here, Quay. Now, if they shift the tray, let's check out and go to will fire, right? Because now they're going to have 3 targets on one side. Let's blitz the backside. It might be something like that. That player's got to be willing to say it in a huddle. Hey, listen, guys, we're doing this, this, and this. If they shift if it's a 2x2 set, we're going to stick with buzz. If they go to trips or tray, then we're going to fire the will. All right, let's go, break. And then they get out there, you see the motion, and all of a sudden you see players communicating, right? They're talking. That might trigger a will fire. Some of that comes into play too. And what you're saying there, Holmes, that could be the case. Maybe Hafley knows that Quay's more comfortable with that and Edgerrin can't handle it, right? So if you take Quay off the field, someone else got to wear the green dot. That's a very good point, man. A lot of things change. A lot of things shift. Randy Cleavers, we should be able to get pressure with 4 this week. I'm telling you, man, if you think they're just going to pin their ears back with 4 and get after the quarterback, this will be the first time this year they've done it. Not for me. You guys know where I stand. It's not from they don't have the talent to do it. They're simply not rushing the quarterback that way this year. They're keeping one back lagging, occupying a double team and playing that little spot look. Chicago may come out and try to run the ball 30 times too. They got a new play caller. That could happen, right? That changes things up too. But you're right, though. If there's a team that you could just pin your ears back and go get, this is it. I just don't see Hafley calling it that way because he's focused on calling defense and not calling for stats. It seems that way anyway. Holmes, Clay, I totally agree. No one watches tape anymore. He came in as a clown. Did you guys see that Caleb got dragged on Twitter for his foot fetish? I don't even want to get into it. I shouldn't have read it on there. It's untelling, man. It's untelling. So the other thing, too, when he was at USC, he was all over billboards and everything. There's nothing wrong with players making money. I am pro NIL. I think it's long overdue, personally. You've got these universities making so much freaking money. Presidents of the university making all this money, coaches getting fully guaranteed contracts, making all this money, and then the players aren't allowed to work at McDonald's. That's crazy to me, right? So I'm pro NIL. I'm just simply saying this dude was painted to be this absolute superstar at USC, all over the billboards, all the endorsements, everything, right? And I go, what has he won? Well, he won the Heisman. Okay, what has he won? I don't care about individual trophies. Did he win a national title anywhere? No, he didn't. Interesting. And we're painting him out to be Tim Tebow 2.0. Like Tim Tebow got dragged when he got in the league, right? Tim Tebow was a dog in college. He was a leader of men. This is a perfect example. Caleb Williams has so much more natural talent than Tim Tebow. But how the hell did Tim Tebow win national titles and Caleb didn't? Tim Tebow made up for it in leadership and sacrificing his body and hey, what he said in Denver. You guys remember the overtime win Tebow had in Denver when he walked to the sideline, looked the OC right in the eye, and said it was like 4th and goal or so. It was something. The game is on the line, and he walked over to the play caller and said, "Nobody gets the ball in this position." He said, "There's only one person who gets the ball in this position," and went back on the field. Guess what they called? It's a quarterback run. Because that's leadership. Put it on me. Put it on me. I'm going to drag this freaking team into the end zone for a touchdown. Now, he couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a mop throwing the football. Don't get me wrong. At the NFL level, because that window is much tighter than college. But that's a good example of somebody being a natural born leader and the other one not being, if that makes sense or not. But let's see here. iRock, that kid Herbert is nice. He's the one quarterback I've seen the Packers play that I thought could play as good as Jay Love. Herbert's a dog, and it's like, okay, how are they going to transition? His numbers aren't as gaudy this year because they go into hardball ball now, which is, if I remember correctly, they built through the offensive line. Hark. That's what Chicago should have done, and that's not me talking. That's Bill Belichick talking. Like, you've seen what they did. They went out and got all these flashy. You remember in the offseason, guys? They went and got DJ Moore. I don't think it's a bad signing, but again, wide receiver should be the last piece you put in place. They went and got Keenan Allen, right? They got all these shiny new targets, and their offensive line's horrible. You got to build in the trenches. Again, focus on what's important. Left tackle, tier 1. Quarterback, tier 1. Center, tier 2. Then you put the rest of your offense together. If you don't have a backside protector and you don't have a center that can command excellence on that offensive line, your offense is cooked. I don't care who you've got playing wide receiver. You look, it's every single year you see it across the league. The teams that make it far in the playoffs have good center play and good backside protection play. It just is what it is. All right, let's move along here real quick. Just checking the chat. All right, yeah, we're good. All right. So, again, personnel, we wanted to hit on that briefly. They expect the Bears to be in 11 personnel 68.4% of the time, and they're in 12 personnel 22.4% of the time is looking like how that shakes up. Now, what's their EPA ranking out of those sets? Their EPA ranking is 14th in the league out of 11 personnel, and out of 12 personnel, it drops to 26. So they're way, way, way more effective in their nickel personnel. You know what that would tell me as a coach? You know what? Why don't we try to march our nickel defense out there even when they're in 12 in case they try to catch us with some play action? And now if they establish, okay, they're having success with their 12 personnel against our nickel, then we'll shift it to our 4-3 base. That might be a way to go. I think of it in terms of that when someone is really, really, really inefficient with certain personnel, maybe you can try to gain a little bit of an advantage going lighter or heavier. Like if they were really bad at 11 personnel, you might say, you know what, when we catch them, when they come out in 11 personnel on early downs, they're probably still going to try to run it. Let's throw our base out there. Let's see if they can beat our backer in pass coverage. You know what I'm saying? So I could see it being something like that too. But anyway, that's just a quick look at the personnel let's get to some of the other things we had on tap here real quick. I'm just going to call this. We'll just say Bears preview here. I'm trying to keep up for the podcast here. I apologize, guys. So let's see what we had here. A couple of things. First of all, we hit on it last night. Jordan Love seems to be 100% healthy. That's great news. Obviously, he's going to be the most important aspect of this game. He's actually practicing is huge. Listen, the inconsistencies, one thing that I've failed as a podcast host the last couple of weeks is not talking about the importance of him practicing, and that probably led to some of his struggling here lately. So I want to mention it now. As Rob Demovsky tweeted out, with Jordan Love no longer limited, it means he took all the practice reps for the first time in a while. Quote, this is from Matt LaFleur. It'd be good just to get him some practice under his belt where he's fully healthy, Matt LaFleur said. Love will be listed on the injury report as a full participant. So obviously he's completely healthy. That's good. He's getting a full week of practice now instead of just limited and all that stuff. So Xavier McKinney, PFF Green Bay Packers tweeted this out. Xavier McKinney has allowed fewer than 10 receiving yards in his coverage in 7 of his 9 games this season. Only 6 first downs allowed, and he's got 6 interceptions. So he's got the same amount of interceptions of first downs he's allowed. That is absolutely awesome. So again, fewer than 10 receiving yards in coverage in 7 of his 9 games this season. Amazing stat. Xavier McKinney completely turned that defense around. What an amazing player, amazing leader. I love what he said there. Like I said, in the locker room, you could tell the safety room really looks up to him, really the entire D. You could kind of notice Ja too. Watch Jair when he's around X. Ja it doesn't look like he's trying to command attention when X is around. Like when you see him on the field, you can see Ja kind of studying him too, and that's a great sign. I think Jair's in a great place. It's exciting to get him back this week too. Love to see Jair get another pick 6. That'd be awesome. Look at the Packers catching up here. You know, we had showed the box that Baz put out that was Kraft Yak and Cheese earlier this year. Well, the Green Bay Packers tweeted this out yesterday. It says Tucker, Kraft, Yak, and TDs, and obviously got it set up like the mac and cheese box. So some statistics there. He's got 5 receiving touchdowns on the year. I think he's tied on the team or maybe second on the team in receiving touchdowns, which is awesome. He's tied for 8th in the NFL. All right. In I think it's in touchdown. I guess it's receiving touchdowns. He's tied for 2nd amongst tight ends in receiving touchdowns. So Tucker Kraft, if I'm reading that stat correctly, that's right. He's a dog. He's tied in 1. It's awesome. Ben Sims, you guys know I'm the president of the Ben Sims fan club. He has replaced Rudy Ford as my favorite underdog story on the Packers now. Ben Sims is I think it's exciting that we're going to have him for another year or two. I think he gives you depth and stability at the tight end position that you otherwise wouldn't have. Luke Musgrave coming back from injury a little later in the year. He had surgery. I'm not sold on Musgrave. You guys know I had a much higher grade. Not much higher. I had Musgrave in the tier ahead of Tucker Kraft the year they came out in the draft. But the reality is you get to the league, some people advance and others don't. Musgrave hasn't taken that step yet. And if you're in that club that, hey, he's been injured, I get it, completely understand. It's a valid excuse. Maybe he can get healthy, stay healthy, and take that next step. You know, you can't improve when you're always in the training room, right? And you can't stay on the practice field. So with Tucker, though, man, what a blessing it has been. And he's a leader of men. You can tell he's a spark plug for this, not just this offense, but this entire team. I think he's going to be a good tight end for a long time for sure. Check the chat there. All right, we're good. This was interesting. Jaquan Brisker is going to be out Sunday. According to Brad Biggs, I looked and it seemed legit. Obviously, he's got 371,000 views on this tweet. So it wasn't just somebody in their mama's basement out there putting out false information. Sounds like strong safety Jaquan Brisker will not play this week. I think he was dealing with concussions. Let me grab a sip. So with the concussion issue here, obviously you're getting into dangerous territory if it's something he's had a multitude of concussions. I've been pretty vocal about that. I was a knucklehead back in up until about 2009, 2010. I was that dude that was the league's soft now. That's not a personal foul when they're leaving with the helmet and this and that. And then as I was ignorant. As I became more knowledgeable around CTE and the brain damage that's actually being caused, and unfortunately, you had a lot of players that ended their life because of it. I had to step back and evaluate myself. Like, hold up a minute, Bob. I know it's entertaining for you, but this is bigger than the game of football. I understand that people are being cautious when it comes to concussions because I don't know if you guys watched the Aaron Hernandez thing on FX. Let me know in the chat if you have. You can, if you've got Disney Plus, Hulu is with it as well. And if you just got Hulu, you can watch it. But I think it's called American Sports Story, and it's Aaron Hernandez. I watched the whole thing. I watched the final episode last night. It was tough to get through, man. And I'm not trying to paint Aaron Hernandez out as a good person. I'm not trying to say I don't. The victims and the victim's family, obviously, first and foremost, the most important thing here. But man, that was tough. It's a tough ending last night. I couldn't go to sleep till like 2 a.m. after I watched it. Like an idiot, I watched it at about 12:30, and it hit hard. It was just like, man, this dude made it out of a bad situation, made it to the top of his profession, and then you find out later he was dealing with CTE. Really, really bad case of CTE. It was tough to watch. I highly recommend you go watch it. Now, listen, there's some stuff in there you do not want to have kids in the room. It is not that kind of show. There's going to be a lot of things that's very, very inappropriate for kids. And me as a grown-ass man, it made me feel uncomfortable. But and keep in mind, they took some freedoms to paint a picture that they wanted to paint, and they give a disclaimer like, hey, look, we don't have 100% factual evidence to back this stuff up, but this is kind of the story that's being rumored, how everything fell into place. But go check it out. If you love football, I think it's worth watching. It might change your mind if you're one of those guys saying, no, the game's soft, But Bears strong safety Jaquan Brisker will not play this week. I'm pretty sure that was concussion related. Let's go to the injury report and see if that's what they had him listed at. I think they did. Yeah, concussion. So that's what it is. Listen, we want the Bears to suck. That's what we do on this show. But obviously, when it comes to concussions, you got Tarvarius Moore down there, another defensive back with a concussion who did not participate. Nothing but well wishes to those guys, and obviously protecting themselves long term. You're seeing what Brett Favre's going through right now. They're saying that was definitely football related too. I don't say definitely. Many people believe that was football related that led to the advanced Parkinson disease. I think is what he's got. My father-in-law just passed away from Parkinson's and a multitude of other things a couple of years ago. It's such a tough disease to watch people fight through. So anytime you got multiple brain injuries on a consistent basis, got to take it serious. Like I said, if you're one of those people that think it's not a big deal, we can respect, we can agree to disagree. I used to be in that camp, and now I'm like, holy cow, man, it's sad. It's pitiful. So got to keep that stuff in mind for sure. All right, let's see what else we got here on the docket. We hit the injury report yesterday. We won't bore you with all that again. Let's get to a coverage through week 10 look here. What are the Packers doing coverage-wise? Where is their pass defense ranking as far as EPA is concerned? It looks like the Packers currently are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th in the league in EPA per dropback, okay, allowed. So they're the 10th best pass defense as far as EPA goes. Now, what are they doing defensively? Just to give you guys an update every week, they're running cover 3 zone the majority of the time, 31% of the time. And as people have talked about here on the show, and we've got I think it's Joshua, I believe, in the Patreon group, who's done the great job of keeping up with our Chalk Talk from every interception. We're going to show every interception this year on Chalk Talk, and he's basically keeping up with, was it man coverage or zone coverage? Zone coverage, hands down, leading the way in interception producing calls for the Packers defense from this Jeff Hafley defense. So cover 3 zone, 31% of the time. There could be some match in there too, but predominantly cover 3 zone, 31% of the time is the call. Second most is cover 1 man at 22%. Now, again, that does not force near as many turnovers, near as many takeaways as a zone defense does, but it's got its place for sure, right? Because you can play like cover 1 man, that can be cover 1 hole or cover 1 robber, meaning you got deep zone, underneath zone, everyone else is man coverage across the board. Cover 1 man could also be a 5-man rush where you might do a wheel fire or a mock fire. So you're taking the drop aspect away, you're keeping the deep safety, and you're bringing 5 men on the rush. They like to do that a lot this year. Not a lot, but they like to do it from time to time. They pick their spots to try to get a sack, a crucial sack in a crucial situation, knocking a team out of field goal range, things like that. So again, cover 1 man could include that as well at 22% of the snaps. Next is cover 2 zone, 20% of the snaps. You guys know we've called out Tampa 2 a lot this year. Tampa 2 has been a big takeaway play for us this year. It's been absolutely huge. As a matter of fact, I feel comfortable saying we've got more interceptions out of Tampa 2 than any other defense we've called. I feel comfortable saying that. So teams are going to catch on to that. The way you beat Tampa 2, first of all, Hafley's disguising it really well, mugging the line, only bringing 4, and he'll run an invert Tampa 2. He'll run a regular Tampa 2. If the quarterback can identify it, the way you beat it is you need a receiver walking the mock or the wheel out down the seam in the Tampa look and then running a dig underneath. That's how you beat Tampa 2. You beat Tampa 2 that way, or you beat it with hole shots, or what I call, hitting the bunkers, right? You got in a cover 2 zone, you got 3 weak spots. You got what I call the base down the seam, right? The huge void in the middle of the field because you're playing 2 deep zone. And you've got the 2 bunkers on the sideline, which most quarterbacks refer to that as the hole shot. You're trying to hit over top of the corner underneath the safety. So you attack it that way from those 3 vantage points. And if they're playing Tampa 2, walk that mock out, and then you attack right in the middle of the field. If it's not Tampa 2, then you're going to have an underneath hook curl that's going to be sitting in that zone that you won't be able to hammer that. So typically you'll come up with a passing concept where like dagger is perfect. If you come out in a 2x2 set and you run dagger, and the go aspect of the dagger concept is to attack the seam, right? You attack the seam, you're walking that mock out, and now that dig is going to be open across the middle. The problem with that is if you've only got a 2x2 set, those corners in Tampa 2 in the underneath hook zone, whether it's a safety and you're sugaring or it's a backer and a hook curl, they're taught that, listen, if it's a 2x2 set, as soon as that guy clears, the other backer's got the seam, you go back, you drop to a depth where you could take away that dig, and now you've stopped that play, that way of attacking it. So in that case, you need some kind of a leak underneath that when that backer drops to a depth of 10 or 12 yards to take that dig away, now you can dump it off underneath and pick up an easy 5 to 8 yards, right? So it's levels in reading the play, right, from an offense standpoint, and the defense is taught different ways of shutting it down. Now, I do want to make a correction. Last night I mentioned when you've got receivers on each side of the formation and you got one running deep and another running cross, we called that dagger. That is not dagger. Okay, I made a mistake. I woke up this morning, first thing I thought was I told them that was dagger. That's actually called strike. That's a strike concept. Okay, so dagger is when you're on the same side of the field. And matter of fact, this might be a good time to do it. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to pull up the Telestrator and show you exactly what I'm talking about. It'll make things a little bit easier here. Let me try to find a good screen grab that'll work. Let's say, let's go with this one. I think this will work. Oh, no, it won't. Of course not. It's a snow game. You can barely see the damn screen. That's hilarious. Let's see this one right here. Okay, so I don't even know what the set is. Of course, that's a bunch set. Swing and a miss. We need somewhat of a – here we go. Here's a dub set. This should work. Yeah, okay, cool. Let me show this on the screen real quick. Drop this down. Explain to you what I mean by strike and dagger real quick. I want the Telestrator. All right, so you guys should be able to see that. Let's drop that down. So, okay, when we're talking about dagger, this would be a dagger concept, right? This would be dagger. It's a go out of the 2, and then the 1 runs a dig. That's called dagger, okay? So what we're talking about with the defense here is if it's Tampa 2, right, then this guy's going to lock eyes on the 2 on either side. If either of those guys go vert, typically they'll pick one side. In this case, they probably prioritize the slot receiver over the tight end. If he goes vertical, he walks out. Now you've got all this open. Now you've got all of this open space right here because he's now down the seam here, right? So you're walking him out with the 2, and then you're attacking that space with the dig. All right, that's what we were just talking about. Now, strike concept. Let's pretend this wide receiver is an offensive lineman, so he's not even going to go out in the route, okay? And let's pretend that this tight end is staying in the block. They're going to go max protect, okay? So you've only got 2 receivers in this route concept. The strike concept is similar to dagger, but it's from players on opposite sides of the field. This guy, let's say, is just going to run a go, and then he's going to work across the field underneath after you clear that out. That's called strike, okay? That's what Shane Waldron did really well in Seattle. It was a staple in his offense, and I think they tried to implement it in Chicago, and it didn't take as well because, again, that's a long way to run, guys. That's a long way to run a route, right? You got to have protection, and your quarterback's got to know how to move these guys out of the way to open up these spaces, moving safeties with their eyes, moving backers with their eyes, and Caleb just isn't there yet. Elite talent, but again, not a great quarterback, right? From a complete package standpoint. Hopefully that makes sense there. But yeah, Emilio, oh snap, the telly coming out. Yeah, so we'll do that from time to time rather than me try to explain it like a knucklehead. We'll actually draw it up on the screen. If you guys would take a quick second, hit that like button. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us here on this glorious Thursday afternoon as we're getting ready for the Bears game coming up this week. Going to be a lot of fun watching that game unfold as we get closer. So we're good in the chat. Let's go to the next topic. Had a couple other things queued up. We talked about coverage. Let's look at the Bears real quick. Where are the Bears? Where are the Bears? They should be toward the top, right? Are they not? Where is the Bears at? How am I missing this? I do this. Oh, they're at the very top. Duh. All right, I was looking for red and blue. It's just solid blue. So they've got the best EPA per drop back, okay, defensively. This is a solid defensive team, guys. They're calling cover 3 zone 38% of the time. No surprise there because when Matt Eberflus was the DC in Indianapolis, they were predominantly a zone team. I remember us doing the show in the offseason when they hired Eberflus. We did a deep dive on, hey, here's the type of defense he runs. It's going to be predominantly zone defense. So there you see cover 3 zone 38% of the time. Second most is cover 1 man, same as us, 19% of the time, not the percentage, but that's the second most call they make. Then they shift to a cover 4 zone at 16% of the time, cover 2 zone 13% of the time. So that's the defense that they like to try to run in Chicago, and they're doing it damn good. They really are. They run a little cover 6 to at 5%, cover 2 man 1%, cover 0 1% of the time. So they're not going to bring a lot of zero blitzing. What they're going to do is a lot of cover 3 mixed in with cover 1. So Jordan's going to have to be reading middle field close the majority of the day. Essentially what that means is end result play, middle field close, you tack on the 38% plus the 19%, which will come to what is that? That's 57%. 57% of your offensive snaps will most likely be facing middle field close. Matt LaFleur knows that. Check it off the list. Let's put together our best passing concepts, our best route combinations to beat middle field close. That's going to be the approach there. And when you play middle field close, the other thing it tells you, it's not cover 4, 2 high shell. It's not cover 2, 2 high shell. It's not cover 2 man, 2 high shell. It's not cover 2, 6 where you'll decide that most of the time when you're in cover 3 zone, you're going to have a safety rotated down to the box, and that's going to help in the running game. Now, the problem is they're pretty bad at stopping the run from what I hear. So offensively, the Packers have got to lean on the run. Your run has been so damn effective. Stick with the run. I don't care if you're down by 14 points in the third quarter. Stay with the run. That's going to be how you move the ball down the field and start tacking on points. If we start this passing on first down because we think we're a superior team, that's going to be the recipe for getting your ass kicked in Chicago on a game that most people, Randy Cleavers included, thinks you should win. But that's how I could see that playing out is you getting too aggressive trying to attack in the passing game. When you see here, they're the number one pass defense in the league as far as EPA goes. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the way I would approach it. We'll deep dive it a little more in depth as we get through the rest of the week. We'll look at the PFF preview and stuff tonight. We'll kind of start diving into that stuff. But let's see. We had a listener comment here. This was from Robert on the Ticket King text line. Said, "Hey Clayton, I can help you guys out with the chief ref and announcers this Sunday. Good old Bill Vinovich once again, a facepalm emoji. Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady on the call, which is really exciting. to have. I like Tom Brady. I know people. It just seems to be like the cool thing to do is when a former player steps into the booth. It's like everybody kind of piles on, like, oh, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They suck. I think he's done an excellent job. He started shaky, don't get me wrong, but I think he's really turned it on. I think he's been really, really good. Let's see here. We can pull up the refs too. I've got that information ready to go, I think. Let me get that ready to share here. I don't know why my screen's acting weird now. All right, screen share, all refs. So I know, listen, what's funny about this, Robert, and I'm as guilty as you are, bub. It don't matter what ref's name's called. There's not one ref on this list that we hear call me go, yeah, I like him. It's always, oh God, it's him this week, because we always, as fans, we're so emotional. We always remember the bad calls. We don't ever remember the games where it's like, man, the refs did good that game. It's always the bad ones, right? So let me drop this down. And Robert, thank you for looking that up, pal. Here are the ref statistics. And again, the ref this week is Bill Vinovich, is going to be the chief. So you can actually sort here on this website by total flags thrown. Ron Tolbert, I got to put him up here on the screen. Tim's boy is still leading the league in total flags thrown at 184. Now, keep in mind, he has officiated. He's been the chief on games, one game, I think the most in the league as far as that goes. Now, here's what's interesting. When you say Bill Vinovich, where's Bill Vinovich at? We got to go pretty far down the list, guys. Check it out. So he's only called 9 games, and I wish we could can we do total? Is that total flags per game? I think it is. That should be total flags per game, right? I think so. So if that's the case, Bill Vinovich, is fourth from the bottom, right? At 12.7 flags per game, I believe is what that is. Okay, so we should get a game as opposed to like a Ron Tolbert or Adrian Hill or Clete Blakeman, who just love throwing that hanky around the yard. We should get a game this week that's going to be less penalties, at least statistically speaking, from a official standpoint. That makes sense. So let's see how many of them were dismissed. Ron Tolbert's dismissed 33 of his penalties called. So talk about being flag happy out there. And I'd say he's probably Bill Vinovich is toward the bottom of the list with this right here with the dismissed flags. But as far as like overall yardage, Clete Blakeman, Ron Tolbert, and Alex Kemp lead the way there in penalty yardage. And it looks like Bill Vinovich is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th from the bottom. But keep in mind, he has his crew's only called 9 games this year, as opposed to Tolbert calling 10. So worth mentioning. So again, some people may not care about the officiating. We try to cover everything on this show, and I think it's important to kind of keep your eye on, okay, this week we should have less flags. Doesn't mean there's not going to be a lot of flags, but there should be less than what we've seen, right? Hopefully that's the case too. And as far as what he said about TV broadcasters, this is cool. Matt Schneidman had tweeted this out. The Packers' next 6 games, Week 11 at Chicago is going to be Burkhardt and Tom Brady. Week 12 versus San Francisco is going to be Burkhardt and Tom Brady. Then Week 13 versus Miami is going to be Thanksgiving night on NBC. That is going to be absolutely awesome. I'm going to be in a turkey coma out there watching football. It's going to be the Dolphins at Lambeau, probably a little bit chilly in the air, right? Going to have good food. By that time, we're digging into the desserts pretty heavy. And that's going to be, who is it on Thursday night? It's Al Michaels and our boy Kirk Herbstreit, which Kirk Herbstreit absolutely broke my heart the other day with Ben passing away, his dog. Man, if you guys are dog lovers like we are big dog lovers here. That just broke me down seeing how upset he was over that. But he's going to be on the call there Thursday night. I personally like that broadcast team, but again, I'm not a harsh critic when it comes to broadcasters. I love Al Michaels. People say Al Michaels is too dull, he's too boring. I'll tell you who I don't like. I don't like the announcers that lose their mind. I think it's fake. It's overblown. It seems cheesy. Everybody loves Gus Johnson. I'm not a fan of Gus Johnson at all. I love Mike Tirico. Mike Tirico's very kind of right in the middle. He's calm. He gets excited when he needs to, but he stays calm. Gus Johnson's just over the top. Seems fake to me, and I can't take it. It's just constant screaming and yelling. And Al Michaels is cut from the same cloth as the greatest announcer in history, in my opinion, and that's our boy Pat Summerall. Pat Summerall was a minimalist. Pat Summerall would tell you what you needed to know, let you hear the crowd, and not get too like animated. And then John Madden would bring the animation in, right? But to me, that's what Al Michaels does, and I absolutely love it. Maybe I'm old school. I'm the get off my lawn guy. But anyway, they should be on the call there if I remember correctly, right? Thursday night. You know what? Thursday night's typically prime, so they're not going to be on the call. NBC is calling it, so that will be Tirico and our other boy. I got to hit him with it real quick.
Here's the guy.
Here's the guy. Put it on loop. It's going to be Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico calling on Thanksgiving night. If I'm looking at that correctly, pretty sure they're the NBC team this year. I like Tirico. I don't mind Collinsworth either. I don't hate on him. I like former players calling the game because they understand the insight. But that'll be who's calling that. Then week 14, Thursday night football, that should be Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. And then week 15 will be Sunday night football. Obviously, that'll go back to, this is kind of confusing. At Seattle, Sunday night football, week 15 will be back to Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth. And then week 16 will be Buck and Aikman on Monday Night Football, which I like them too. Again, it's kind of like movie, critiquing movies. I don't watch a movie. It's very seldom I see a movie and go, that was horrible. I don't watch a lot of movies because I think they're boring. But almost every movie I watch, it's like I can see the value in that. That was put together good type thing. So let's go to the chat real quick. Anything else? Look at Brambo in here. What's up, Brambo? Became a new YouTube member. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for swinging through, man. Yeah, it's Bears week. Everybody getting back in the fold here. You absolutely love it, man. Reef in the chat said, protect the ball. Also, no fumbling. Amen, Reef. It's going to be the key to the game, dude. There's no two ways about it. Got to protect the football. Win the turnover differential, right? Top priority. Try to control the momentum of the middle eight, and then play that fourth quarter as a standalone game and do whatever you got to do to get out of Chicago with a win. I'm not expecting a blowout. If we get one, awesome. But I think this team is – some of these players they get their back against the wall, right? There is some division in the locker room. Put it this way. They're either going to come out and play great ball or that team's going to absolutely fall apart this Sunday. There's not going to be anything in between. I believe that with everything in me, man. I really do. Let's see here. Coach Lynn says, I'm watching the Aaron Hernandez story. It's really good. Coach, it's I don't know if you've seen the last episode yet, but, man, tore me up, Buck. Tore me up. If anybody has ever lost a friend due to depression I'll tell you another one. The Odin Lloyd episode, Coach, broke my heart. Like, it's like, again, no one was there. We don't know exactly how it took place, but if it took place that way, it kind of makes sense. And it does paint both people involved as humans, but Odin Lloyd sounded like just an amazing, amazing young man that did not need to lose his life. No one needs to lose their life. Don't get me wrong, but Odin Lloyd, it's just pitiful. Again, people are going, I don't want to watch this, Clayton. It sounds depressing. I think you should watch it as a football fan. I do, because it's important to kind of get that side of the story, although we don't know if it's 100% factual. It's just based off of rumors, information, that type of thing. So, yeah. Let's see. Mike Berry, walk the dog and clean the fireplace, taking a break, listen to the pod. Appreciate you, Mike. Hope you're having a good day, buddy. Get that fireplace ready. That cold weather's coming, man. No doubt. Cheesehead Murph, welcome to the posse. Bram, exactly. And then he says, keep penalties to a minimum. That's going to be huge too. It sounds like Emilio puts a little more emphasis on the penalties than I do. For me, in that order, it's turnovers, drop passes, then penalties. It's kind of where I feel like, hey, look, you got to – if you can clean up the first two, you can deal with the third. But if you could play a completely clean game with penalties and throw 3 picks, you're going to lose that ball game most likely. It's going to be in the 90 percentile that you lose that game if you don't have any takeaways in addition to you turning the ball over 3 times, So, again, it's all important, but if you were to prioritize it, I would prioritize it in that light. Brambo said, completely agree on Gus Johnson, Clay. I'm glad I'm not the only get off my lawn guy because it drives me crazy. It'd be different if it felt organic, but it feels like he's just trying to oversell it, trying to act like something that it's not. And that drives me crazy. The game is good enough that you don't have to make any kind of fake emotions. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should just call the game for what it is. And I think that's what Al Michaels does well. And that's why I like him. And it's damn sure what our boy back in the day, God, now his name's evading me, but was coupled up with John Madden, Pat Summerall. It's definitely what he did. He was really good at that. Just call the game, man. Call the game what it is. And they would get tickled every now and again. They had their inside jokes. It was great, man. I miss Madden and Summerall, no doubt. But let's see. Last thing, let's hit on the playoff picture real quick, and then we'll get out of here, okay? And we'll hit this again as a refresher later. This is the new playoff picture. So in the AFC, the Chiefs are the 1 seed, Bills are the 2 seed, Steelers are the 3, Texans are the 4, Ravens are the 5, Chargers are the 6, and the Broncos are the 7. All right, in the AFC. In the NFC, the Lions are the number 1 seed at 8-1, Eagles number 2 seed at 7-2. And this is a perfect example here. I'm going to say this: Week 1 this year, people were dogging the Eagles. Packers should boat race the Eagles. Packers should beat the Eagles. The Eagles haven't. Remember, we were talking about their last 10 games or last 7 games or whatever it was. They're the 2nd seed in the NFC this year. That's a perfect example. Well, DVOA says this, and then you look up 5 weeks later and nobody's mentioning what the DVOA was in week 1. That's why I throw that. I understand if people want to prioritize it, but that drives me absolutely insane. It's like that is not the telltale of what a team is or a team's going to be. It just isn't. So anyway, the Eagles, who were supposed to be trash and we were going to beat them by 14 points, beat us in week 1. And many fans, the couple that get really emotional and like to cuss on the pod, they jump out talking about this team's trash. They're so blah, blah, blah. And you look up and the Eagles are 7-2. So just saying. Number 3 seed, Atlanta Falcons at 6-4. Number 4 seed, Cardinals at 6-4. Number 5 seed, Vikings at 7-2. 6th seed is the Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn we talked about earlier, 7-3. And then the number 7 seed currently is the Green Bay Packers sitting there at 6-3. So every game is going to matter from here on out, guys. Got to continue to battle. You've got other teams that are going to try to sneak up and steal these spots from you. I think I got the NFC standings. This does not include the Monday Night Football game, so the Rams are actually 4-5, which I don't think it'll shift much here. But essentially what you got behind you breathing down your neck for that number 7 seed is the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, by the way, guess who we play next week? San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be a dandy. I can't wait, man. Cannot wait. So the Packers sitting they're at 6-3, the Niners at 5-4, and then everyone else below them is at least 4-5. So we're rooting against the Niners this week. Obviously, we root against the Niners every week unless they're playing a division rival that's going to help the Packers. But the Packers need to get a win. Let's root for a Niners loss. That would give us a little bit of breathing room in that number 7 seed. And also, let's hope the Lions and the Vikings eventually slip up and somehow we could steal this NFC North. But that's kind of just a quick look. We'll take a deeper look at it and get you guys involved on tonight's show. So, all right, that's it, guys. We're going to get out of here. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Didn't plan on doing the hour 20 today for the morning show, flying solo, but you guys were awesome in the chat. Appreciate y'all contributing. Want to give a special shout out to Randy Cleavers with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. You are the man. And Brambo becoming a member here on YouTube. Also, check out our Patreon group. Scan that QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. If you're a member of one of those 3 tiers, by midnight Saturday, we'll put you on the Larry McCarron pinky wheel, and we're going to spin that thing and give away an autographed Romeo Dobbs rookie card that was donated by United Baits, one of our great listeners. So we'll be doing that on the post-game show. So make sure you're a member of one of those 3 tiers in our Patreon group if you want to enter into that. And also, it's just a way for us to give back to those who are supporting the channel. We got an awesome community over there with chat groups and all that stuff. Get questions for the show read, all that. So, again, thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys tonight for PTA Live. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go, Pack, go.